But let's go ahead and bring in our next guest, Alif Huq. He is in Canada and is a really wonderful, high energy individual who spends a lot of his time sharing tips to help others. And we're very excited to have him on. Let's see if we can get him on. Where is Alif?
There he is. There I am. What's going on, guys? Hey, Justin, it's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, Alif.
Hello, friends.
I am so excited that you're back on with us, especially for this episode. Because, all things pay, man. Nothing is more important than getting that money, right?
Get that money. That's the goal. Get the money,
So Justin just brought up one of the exact subjects that we're going to be discussing with you today, and that's contractor pay. Because you've done independent work, and you've had to set your own pay, your own rates and things like that.
Yeah.
So how does that? First of all, let's start with how do you negotiate when it comes to your clients? What's your take on that?
And are you speaking specifically like for a job or like a freelance kind of contract kind of thing going on?
Yes, freelance kind of contract situation.
Yeah, I think the core of knowing how much you're supposed to get paid and whatnot all boils down to your competency and how you feel about yourself. There were times where when I did my resume writing services, I remember I was late night at a university writing a resume for someone for just $40 and feeling completely resentful of the entire process. And then there were times where I would make some videos and things of that nature, and I got paid like a good $1,000 a week, which was amazing. And the biggest difference that I noticed between the first situation I described and the second is that on the second situation, I felt more competent about my skills. And because I was competent about my skills, I was able to portray it in my confidence. So by the time when I got on a sales call and I told them about my rate, I can confidently look them in the eye and say, yeah, so my rates right now are about $1,000 for this project. Is that something that you can work with? And I wasn't flinching because I sort of knew my worth and the confidence was there. Again, the confidence sort of came from competency of knowing, how good I am at the actual work I do.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
I would just say real quick, I want to touch on that because we're very big on the whole know your worth situation, right? And really honing that in. So you're saying that, kind of going back to what Michaela said, that dopamine, you got a better dopamine type response when you were getting paid better for the same work, and that made a difference in your confidence, which then helped you to negotiate better for yourself. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I think so one thing, it's almost like it comes from the inside. So, if I tell someone, hey, I don't know, make a video for you for $20, imagine how they'll see you. They'll see you as like a cheap, easy to do kind of person. And, that'll attract more cheaper clients and things of that nature. But if you say, hey, my rates are about $1,000, is this something you can do? Then it's like they see you in a sense that you're, higher end and you have more expertise and things of that nature. So psychologically, you get branded as the person who is more, I guess, better with their job, and therefore they charge a higher rate and things of that nature, right? But again, all this roots down to your perception of how you think about yourself.
Right. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. You have to have that sense of personal value when you go in to negotiate. So on the flip side, when people don't pay you for your work, how do you go about handling that? And what are your thoughts on that, on delaying pay to contractors?
Yeah, I think one thing I realize is that when it comes to delaying pay, it's easy for me when the invoice doesn't come in on time. It's easy for me to judge them and be like, oh, they didn't pay and everything, right? So I always try to catch myself in those moments, and instead of approaching from like attack and get my money and revenge and all this stuff, I'm coming from a place of like, maybe they just forgotten everything. So oftentimes if I send a quick email, by the way, here's my invoice, let me know if there's anything I can do. Usually I'll get an email back saying, oh, I'm so sorry, totally forgot. Here it is, bam, e-transfer or whatever, PayPal, whatever it is. So I think approaching it and being mindful of your energy and essence of how you approach the situation is absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. I would completely agree with you. You have to be, and I do the same kind of thing. And I do actually, my tip would be to anybody who's doing contract labor, who has their own company, who's looking for their, looking at how they do their billing. I send an invoice 10 days in advance I resend it 3 days in advance. And then I shoot a little email over the day before and go, hey guys, just a reminder, this due tomorrow. Thank you so much. And most of the time that results in me making sure that money's in there. And then if they're not, the first point of contact is very friendly, like you said. And I go, hey, I noticed it wasn't in there. I'm assuming do you need me to resend the account information? And I also try to make it that, maybe I forgot to give you this piece of information, so that they don't feel attacked. They don't feel like I'm, overwhelming them. But then you do have to also say, no, but you owe me the money. So
exactly. And I think there's a lot of taboo around talking about money and where you're going to pay me and everything. And when it comes to money talk, there's always like a guard or wall up, or like a shyness up going on. One thing I realized from most of my successful friends is that when they talk about money, it's almost like logical. It's not coming from a place of like, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. It's more like, so this is my rate. This is it. Are we good with that? Okay, let's move forward. That's one thing I really notice. They kind of break the taboo.
Yes, that's very true.
Because you've mentioned a couple things that are interesting. One, have some emotional intelligence when you're talking about money and asking for money, especially reminding people that you have a invoice out. The other thing is it really becomes something interesting when you talk about money as a fact rather than an emotional attachment. This is a business. This is a transaction. Exactly. We're okay at the grocery store when the grocery clerk says you owe me, $4.50 for your groceries. You're like, okay, you don't. There's no bad feeling. There's no animosity. There's no weirdness. But when we do it in person for other services, that's when it becomes interesting and more awkward for us, I think.
It's very true.
We need to move towards that grocery store.
Be a grocery store. That's the goal. Be a grocery store.
Yeah. That's actually a great way to put it, is be a grocery store. Just, this is the price, this is how it is, and let's move forward with it.
And the thing is, like, you're not stealing money from them. Like, you're offering something really good that they need. You're solving a problem for them, and it's fair to get compensated rather than like, give me my money, give me my money. You're not being greedy. It's just totally fair. You know what I mean? And
it's the same thing with pay for employees. It's the exact same thing. Like you said, you are giving a service, you must be fairly compensated. That's just it. That's just how it works. Now with my business, I happen to charge a lot less than my competitors, but it's not a devalued thing. That's what I always explain to people. I price based on what I consider to be a fair and reasonable rate for my services. I don't charge what I can get away with. And that's what I feel like a lot of people in my industry do, is they charge what they can get away with. That's not how I charge. I charge what I consider to be reasonable and fair, but what I charge is what I charge, and I don't negotiate that.
Yeah.
So you can have your own set of rates, and that's fine. It can be different from other people, but be confident in those rates. Would be the message I would portray.
Exactly. One thing I learned is that you're actually helping them when you make them pay you. For example, if you're doing an online course program or coaching program, if you gave it away for free, the odds of them actually pulling through with the content and the homeworks and everything is probably significantly low. Whereas if someone's paid a hefty like $2,000 for a program, they're more likely to be on top of things, show up for the group coaching calls and everything. So you're actually helping them by taking their money.
That actually is true.
Yeah, that's what I learned.
It sounds funny, but it actually is true.
Yeah,
I love that. Exactly. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah.
I'm
helping you by taking your money.
More money, and I'll help you more.
Exactly.
I'm teaching. So I'm teaching my grandparents to use Zelle, and while they're here visiting me, and that's what they've been telling their children. They're like, "Oh no, we need you to send us money because it will help us learn."
Ooh, there we go. Yeah.
So they've been using your technique.
Exactly.
I'm helping you.
You're helping them when you make the pay. Exactly. Yeah.
That's so funny. You're helping the situation.
Alif, you bring up something interesting. There is value there, and if people don't pay, it's a perceived non-value, right? So if it's a $0 amount, then there's no value attached to it in anybody's mind. But if you put a minimum amount to it, whatever that is for your product or service, and if it's fair or high, whatever that is, it doesn't matter. But there's perceived value to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I've bought a lot of coaching programs from like 5,000 to 3,000, and every time I'm on that call where I'm about to put in my credit card, there's always a hesitance. But after I actually submit it, and like a day after or a week after I take the course, I'm actually thinking to myself, wow, that was so worth it. I am so glad they charged me $5,000 because this is actually worth like $15,000. And I'm actually happy most of the time that they actually charge me a lot. Believe it or not, it's interesting.
It is. That is an interesting way to look at it. But I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, just take my money.
I know. I'll take your money, Alif, anytime, buddy. If you don't want money, just send it on this way. I'll give you my grandparents' Zelle. You can send it to my grandparents on their Zelle. They'll help them learn.
Exactly. Appear in the talk show, give away money.
That's right. No, I'm really excited to hear you say that. And now, when it comes to determining your worth, though, so we've talked about that you should know your worth and you should be confident. How do you recommend that people, in a very generic sense, because we have an audience with all different kinds of backgrounds, IT and the communications and all that, how would you recommend determining that worth?
Yeah,
and going about that process?
Are you talking about freelancing or jobs or employment?
Either way, just in determining your worth to portray it to others.
So I'd like to talk about employment for a second, and I'd love to share a story real quick, a personal example of mine. So when I graduated from university, I got my first HR job, an entry-level HR job, and I was getting paid in this Canadian rate about $33,000 a year, which at the time, first job, I was like, oh my God, a salary, not a minimum wage. Oh my, not hourly. Oh my God. And everything. And then, that went up to like 36 or something. And I worked it for about a year. And then I decided I didn't like HR. So I left and decided to take a minimum wage job at an entry-level marketing position. So I went from 36 to minimum wage. And then I worked there for 3 months in an entry-level marketing role. And then when I went to my next marketing job, I ended up getting paid $45,000. So it was significantly more than my HR job. And I went from minimum wage to $45,000. And I realized the reason I can do this kind of jump that I mentioned is because at that time, when I was applying for that second marketing job, I knew I had the expertise for the role and more. So when it came time for the CEO, they're like, what's your pay expectation? I can confidently tell them, yeah, 45,000 is like what I'm expecting. And they didn't flinch or anything. And it's almost weird because I felt like I was worth it because, again, my technical expertise when it came to the email marketing softwares and all this stuff, it felt totally fair. So one thing I realized jumping from minimum wage to 45K is that the jump is determined on how valuable you perceive yourself. And that is determined by your competency, which then portrays into confidence.
Right. And that's true. And so when you're building up your skills, that makes you more valuable. It doesn't matter what title you've held or anything like that. It's what skills you have and what abilities you have. I have met people that have hardly had a standard style job that I would put in a management level position like that, because that's where their skills are strong. And so when you have, and the same kind of thing with IT, I've known people that have development, that have, that type of thing, but then they've also on the back end, just at home, taught themselves all these wonderful cybersecurity skills and all of that. So you can put them in a risk security position, even though they've never held it, and they get a 60K a year bump just because they've taught themselves these skills. Yeah. So guys, when you're teaching just because you haven't held the title, that doesn't mean anything. Look at your skill level. Alif is 100% right about that. Look at your skill level and your abilities, and that's how you negotiate your pay.
Yeah,
and that's how you determine your worth.
Exactly. And to add to that, beyond just taking courses, it's important to implement what you're learning. So if I'll relate to marketing. If you're learning about social media through a course, it's also good to do social media. So then when it comes time for the actual job or the interview and they ask you a technical social media question, you can be like, yeah, blah, 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 because I did this and I got this result. So it makes sense, right?
100%.
So practically apply it, not just binge a Skillshare course or LinkedIn Learning course all day.
Right.
I couldn't agree more with you in terms of building your skill sets up. Skill sets are what we hire. I don't hire someone because they've had titles. I don't hire someone because they've had a degree or certifications. Although certifications tell me they know a certain amount. That's the baseline, right?
Right.
So degrees and certifications are baseline. Now tell me what skills you have, how have you implemented them, and I want to know how you think through them. And that comes from experience, like Alif was saying, put them to test, right? So take in his example, social media. If I want to get into social media marketing, do it. Then I could see as a manager how you think through these processes, and then see that you have these skill sets that I'm going to need. Right?
Yes.
You're telling me through all that I really need you, basically.
Yes, 100%. And I also don't want to skip over something very important that you communicated. Alif, that's that you don't be scared to take a lesser paying job for a while if it will get you the skills that you need to eventually get where you want to go. I've done the same thing in my career. I've taken jobs that paid me a lot less because I thought, ooh, I'm going to learn a lot here and I will be able to apply that later. And it worked extremely well, including choosing to start working for entrepreneurs. I made that decision early on that I wanted to learn about business ownership and entrepreneurship. So I started working with entrepreneurs in little itty bitty tiny companies that didn't pay me quite what I was used to making, but I learned so much with that.
Yeah, I think there's a quote, chase the learning, not the earning, or something of that nature.
Yes, I like that. Yeah, chase the learning, not the earning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. Yeah, skill set is crucial. One thing I also like to debunk is that, I've been noticing a lot of my friends say, like, I have 2 years of experience, I can do this. I have 5 years of experience, I can do this. And I realize years of experience I don't think they're the best currency to use, because I feel like you can be in one job for 10 years and you said 10 years of experience, whereas someone who's in like a bunch of different roles doing a bunch of different things for 2 years probably has more technical expertise. So I almost feel like I kind of want to debunk the myth that years of experience will equal to higher pay. It's more that your skill set is equal to your higher pay, I guess.
That's very, very true. And also, just because somebody has done something for years does not mean that they're good at it. I literally, and this is not a joke. I could sit here and actually read this for you. I'm in a bunch of recruiting groups, and a person who has supposedly been doing recruiting for almost 20 years, which is longer than I've been doing it, posted and said, I'm having trouble recruiting recruiters. How do I do that? And I'm going, are you really telling me that a person whose whole job is hiring does not know how to hire somebody to do what they do? You are bad at your job. Get in a new line of work. Do something else. Good grief. I did. As nicely as I could, as nicely and politely as I could. That's essentially what I said. Because what in the world, just because you've done something for a long, I know it's funny. What is wrong with you? Yeah, please quit. You're making the rest of us look bad. Please stop doing this and go away forever. It really is bad. And as a recruiter, I'm going, no, this is why people hate us. But seriously, if just because you've done it a long time doesn't mean that you're good at it. That doesn't mean that's your strength. So also play to your strength, because that's how you'll get that money. But yeah, but skills are money. And I tell everybody that. I know IT people that don't have a degree, but that have worked at the Pentagon, have worked these very interesting. In fact, I knew a young gentleman, the very first thing he did, he got out of school and he said, well, I want a job, but I don't want to get paid, this little tiny bit of money because I have all these skills. So he hacked into the company that he wanted to work for. And he immediately sent them an email saying, this is what I'm doing. This is why I want to come work for you. And this is all the things that need to be fixed. Here's how I broke into you. And I know how to fix it. He got a job. So now, I'm not saying do that.
No.
I'm not saying do that. But what I am saying is don't be afraid to showcase your skills in a creative, very bold way. Now, he knew what he was doing, and I forgot to mention this part of the story. I'm so sorry. He knew somebody in the company. So he kind of had an insider, that knew what he was doing that would make sure he wouldn't get into trouble. So he did this very bold thing that could have backfired, that could have caused them not to want to hire him. Right. Yeah, or jail time. But he didn't actually take out any information. He hacked and then stopped.
Right. It showed the
so he never got any actual information. But you use those skills and you do something bold, you do something interesting. I've done that. I have walked into a company and said, I noticed that you could really use some help here. Right. And these are my ideas for this solution. And they hired me. And and that was it. I did that with an event company that was starting out. I said, okay, well, you've got some great ideas and all that, but this is what I would do. And this is how I would go about this. I got a job from it. So go out there and be bold and really put yourself out there like that. It'll work. It'll be effective. Trust me. Yeah.
You bring up something interesting. We talk about skills and how it advances your career. I tend to tell people who are starting out in the workforce that if they get experience, whether they're paid or not, that is the payment. right? If I learn a new skill set, that is the payment, right? I mean, I may not get it professionally and get money for it because I just may not have that skill set. But if I go out and learn something and then that gets me to a better place, a better job, then the payment is that you learned something, right?
Yes.
So you could think of this career advancement and getting better pay, since we're talking about pay, as being, I can go learn a skill for free or for minimum wage, like Alif did. And then while that's not going to be a lot of money, the other part of that pay is that he learned a lot of skill sets.
100%. Yes.
And then you're getting paid that way. So there's two paychecks as I see it. One comes in the form of money and one comes in the form of learning a skill that will get you further down the road.
Absolutely. Exactly. And I do want to kind of jump in. So we were supposed to have Deanna Stinson-Reese on, who is a terrific human being, but she is having to evacuate her home due to a hurricane. Yeah. So we will not be having her on. But Alif, if you could stay on with us just a little bit longer, I'd actually kind of like to get your take on this. So Deanna was going to be discussing pay discrepancies with us. And specifically racial pay discrepancies. And I do not know the stats on this in Canada. So you can definitely give your perspective from a Canadian perspective. But in the US, one thing that has been true for a very long time is women make a lot less than men. Currently, women are making, I wrote all this down so I wouldn't accidentally mess it up. But women are earning approximately $10,000 a year less for similar style roles. Now, in the exact same position, they're at about a 3 to 4% discrepancy currently for the same skills, same years of experience, same geography, same company, that kind of thing. 3 to 4%, even at the same company, less than men. However, with minorities, it is significant. In general, minority males are making between $10,000 and $16,000 a year less than Caucasian males, and even in the same role, are making about 10% less, which is just incredible to me. That's huge. 10% is a big gap, and some people are going, "Oh, well, that could be just a couple thousand." Okay, but it's still 10%. That should not be happening. So I want to, obviously this is a tragedy and it's very sad. But I want to address this in a few different ways. First, what would be your suggestion, either one of you, to candidates going in for positions to overcome that discrepancy? What is your advice on that? Alif, we'll start with you. What is your advice on that?
So I actually coached a lot of newcomers to Canada, and I'm guessing the stats you provided is very similar to Canada. But I've coached a lot of newcomers to Canada from like India and all these different places. And one thing I noticed when their mindset, they come inside compared to like a Canadian person, is that the Canadian person will generally know their worth in the marketplace, whether because they had bunch of jobs in the past, so they kind of know how much they're getting paid, or maybe they did their research and everything. So what I notice is that when newcomers, go for an interview and they ask, "What is your pay?" and they'll often say things like, "I'm open," or "I'm flexible," or "I'm I can do this," right? And it's always that thinking. Whereas like a lot of the Canadian people, I noticed they go in with more like an assertive tone, like, "Hey, I'm worth $50,000 a year. I'm this, right?" So if there's a tip that I have for anyone who might be struggling with this, it's that it's important to do your research. And the best way you can do your research, I'm sure, is like Glassdoor.com. Maybe reach out to someone in the company, ask how much they're worth. And, there's a lot of online resources. But I think the biggest thing here is knowing your worth and confidently, again, like standing for your worth.
100%. Yes, I would say that's very, very smart. And on the company side, Justin, because you've been on the other side of that, right? You've been on the hiring desk side. As a company, how do you ensure that you're not creating pay discrepancies, whether it's against minorities or against women? How do you ensure that?
There's a couple of things that we've done. I mean, I'll tell you right now, it's extremely difficult to do because you're negotiating with individuals. And you have a pay band that was discussed earlier by Anna, right? That we have this pay band that we're adhering to because it's our budget. To solve the problem of discrepancy, though, I think in pay, we've done a couple of things, and there's some really interesting companies out there that are doing even more interesting things than we are. They've set these standards saying this is the pay level for this position. period.
Right.
This isn't going to be negotiated. This is where you are. So if you can think of level 1 through 7, for example, and whatever the organization inside your company is, marketing or IT or development or whatever that is, accounting even, say this is level 1, this is level 2, this is level 3. There's no negotiations. We remove that. Right. And I think by doing that, then you remove that idea that this person's worth more than this person based on whatever criteria you have.
Right.
And that can be, gender,
and I think
or even.
Right. Yes. Or race as well. And I think you and I discussed that as then they also, but those levels are also your experience within the company. So if you've been there another year, or if you've gained additional skills within a certain amount of time, you can advance, and that's how you advance. But it's based on these very specific criteria. Very specific.
And they go back. So the company that we talked about is a company out of San Francisco, a tech company out of San Francisco. And what we did is we looked at kind of how, and I talked to the CEO, looking at how he decided to do this. And it was, we're bring people in at a certain level, say 1 through 7 was their categories, right? So we bring someone in at a 4. 3 months later, we go back and we say, are you still at this 4, or have you increased, or have you decreased for whatever reason within the company? And then we adjust accordingly to where they are. And then we can remove the idea that gender, race, whatever, age is also a huge
age
one.
Is a huge one. Yeah, age is a huge one.
Older people are getting pushed out of companies, or they're getting knocked down to positions where they, but he wanted to remove that from the equation. Right. And he has the skills thing where he works on where you go back, if you're going to evaluate someone, you can only evaluate the work that they've done, not anything else. You don't get to evaluate their presentation skills, for example. You don't get to evaluate how well they speak in meetings or don't speak in meetings. And I think that plays a lot to it when you look at the gender gap and the race gap. You look at how these people are in meetings, and I think they're judged by that. I have a whole bunch. I came from the tech industry. A whole bunch of software developers, they don't speak up in meetings. It's not like their thing.
Don't say anything.
The sales people, you can't stop them from talking. Sales and marketing, they're off the hook. They're like, jabber-jawing the whole meeting. But you have these software developers, and then they're like, oh, we don't know about their personality because they're quiet and they're not, and
who cares? That's not why you hired them.
That plays into that bias, though.
Yes, it does.
It plays in the bias in the management, because the management's like, well, they're not really participating in meetings. Well, so what? Are they contributing to the role that you've asked them to do, which is software development, right?
Right. So 100%. And what are your thoughts on that, Alif? So with that kind of system?
Yeah, I almost feel like if you're someone struggling to make their place in the workplace and get perceived value and things of the nature, based on what you just mentioned, Justin, it almost feels like you have to watch your face value. I don't know if the word is almost like the way you conduct yourself in the workplace also matters, because I feel like I don't think there's an ideal utopia where a company is 100% non-discriminating, and there'll probably be cognitive biases in the workplace somewhere. It is so, wherever it is, and I almost feel like the best thing you can do in terms of your professional career development is, like you said, Justin, be mindful of how others think and how you are in the workplace. If you feel lazy in a meeting, actually try to participate just a bit. Always asking for feedback. What can I do to improve? Taking part in company outings and things of that nature. All that sort of contributes to how your manager kind of sees you and everything. So that's a kind of interesting point you bring up.
No, it is. And actually, I think both of you are right. I think that there's personal responsibility that you have to make sure you're portraying yourself effectively, and make sure that your work is being seen and that type of thing. But the other side is, I do think that companies, I like the idea of having a set way. The other thing that provides, Justin, is it provides automatic advancement opportunities. It gives people to climb and grow who may, because a lot of companies are bad about just leaving people stagnant for forever, which drives me bonkers. So I like that encourages growth, but it also does help eliminate discrimination in the pay process. This is something that happens a lot. Now, another one that I hear a lot is that women do not negotiate a lot. We'll be talking to Sandra about that in just a few minutes. But the other thing that's interesting to me is that a lower percentage, so 63% of minority males are, and I had trouble finding the stats for this on women, but 63% of minority males are in direct contributor positions, so non-management positions, whereas only 56% of Caucasian males are in contributor. So there is a 7% difference in the number that have gone to management and that type of thing. So I'm wondering if that's a lack of opportunity, or if that is the self-worth issue that you've discussed, Alif, if people are, because there have been prejudices, not if people feel like intimidated to move forward to that. So how would you, if you were talking to a candidate who said, I want to overcome this, I want to move into management, I've been stuck in this position a long time, Alif, what would your advice be to somebody that wants to advance?
Yeah. For sure. The way I approach at least my career is always being responsible for your personal agency. So what you can control and what you can do. Maybe because newcomers, maybe their communication skills lack, and therefore going to management is a whole new thing because it involves a lot of social skills. Whatever it is, there's probably a reason for that. And we can't necessarily control that, but we can control ourselves and how we are. Right. I almost feel like if someone came to me and they're saying, hey, I want to get into management, but I don't know how, and all these Caucasian individuals are in management and I feel out of place. The first thing I'd probably say is, what can you control? Oh, your skill set, how you are in the workplace. If you're attempting to go for promotions, are you taking on stretch projects, things of that nature? Have you done that, right? So for me, I always approach it from personal agency. So what you can control.
Right. Absolutely. No, absolutely. Brilliant. I think that's important on both sides of the desk as well, because as managers, a lot of times you're limited, right? Because let's say you're at a big corporation, you can't control the corporate policies for reviews or the corporate, but you want to help your team advance and grow and get pay raises. So as management, be receptive. I always talk about a former employee of mine who would just walk in and announce to me, I've accomplished these things, I'm ready for a raise. And he would just randomly walk into my office and sit down and say, hey, this is what I've done. I want this much of a raise, and here's how I'm justifying it. And so going back to that, knowing your worth, but then managers, you need to also be receptive on that as well. And when somebody is telling you, even if you can't control when they get a raise, say, okay, great, let's set a plan to definitely get this taken care of for you and help you reach your next level of success. And I think for women, it's the same kind of thing. Just get in there, put it out there, let them know. So I guess we'll kind of wrap this part up. We'll go ahead because I know you've been on with us a long time. I want to keep talking to you, Alif. I do. I just want to keep going on and on. And I have so many questions for you. And I love your energy. And I love talking to you. But let's go ahead and we'll let Alif leave us, and we'll welcome on Sandra a little bit early. Bye. Good news. Talk